Hey guys, maybe you feel like right now life is a bit outside of your control. Uh, Maybe you have some really big decisions about jobs, or maybe you were let go from your job, or how to continue with school or career in the face of just extreme uncertainty and difficulty at the moment. And so, what do we do when we're faced with things that are outside of our control, that we feel like we don't know what to do, or maybe even we're afraid of what the next step is that we need to do? And to answer that question, I wanted to turn our attention to Psalm chapter 62. And in Psalm chapter 62, it's a psalm of King David from the Old Testament. And in this psalm, it's from the period of time where people were pursuing David. They were telling lies about him. They were trying to usurp his power and throw him out of kingship, that they might reign instead of him. And so it was a difficult season for him. And this is what he says in Psalm 62 for us today. He says, I wait quietly before God, for my victory comes from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress where I will never be shaken. Let all that I am wait quietly before God, for my hope is in him. He alone is my rock and my salvation, my fortress where I will not be shaken. My victory and honor come from God alone. He is my refuge, a rock where no enemy can reach me. O my people, trust in him at all times. Pour out your heart to him, for God is our refuge. So there's a beautiful illustration encapsulated in this psalm, and that is that God is our fortress, that he is the stronghold of which that we can hide behind, that when things are crazy, when things feel out of our control, that we can hide behind the fortress of God's mighty power and his love. It says that he is our rock and our salvation. And over 500 years ago, the theologian Martin Luther wrote a song called A Mighty Fortress is Our God. And I wanted to read one part of that song to you. It says, and though this world with devils filled should threaten to undo us, we will not fear, for God hath willed his truth to triumph through us. And that gets to the heart here of what David is saying, that even in the midst of difficulty in life, even in the midst of hardship or in things that feel outside of our control, we have a fortress, we have a rock that we can go to. And I love this. It says, my victory comes from him. A great reminder for us that our victory does not come from our intelligence, does not come from the number of degrees or letters we have after our name. It doesn't come from how much money we have or who we know, but ultimately our victory comes from God. And what I wanted to share with you is just a few things from this for finding rest in the midst of the craziness, in the midst of the busyness of life, in the midst of this really crazy season, is finding rest in God, our fortress, for three things. One, for salvation, that our salvation, our right standing with God, our eternal relationship with God is not based on anything that we have done. It's based on the rock that is Jesus Christ. And so we can rest in that truth. Also, we see that David finds his honor is in God. And so when people are slandering him, saying bad things about him, he says that his honor is found in God. And so maybe some days you feel that your pride is hurt from something that somebody has said, or from a bad grade that you got, or you didn't do well on a project, but that we can remember that our honor, our right standing, our well-being, our self-image is founded on the rock of God. And then lastly, we find rest in God our fortress as our protection. That ultimately he is the one who protects us and will deliver us from the ultimate fear, and that is the fear of death. Through Jesus Christ, his son, his resurrection that we talked about on Easter, we can be free from death. And so we find in God an ability to rest even in the midst of the storm, because we have the rock of Jesus Christ. And I wanted to say one last thing that I love from this passage. It starts out by saying, I wait quietly before God. And I love that picture as a reminder to me to wait quietly before God, that he might speak to me primarily through his word, that he would speak to me in my situation and my current day, that he would bring peace to my mind and to my heart. And so it says, let all that I am wait quietly before God. And then at the very end of verse 8, it says, pour out your heart to him, for God is our refuge. That's a beautiful thing that we have, a privilege that we have with the God of the Bible, that you won't find in other gods of religions around the world, is that this is a God that listens to you. Pour out your heart to him. Whatever it might be that is on your heart, good, bad, ugly, that he wants to listen to it, he wants to hear it, and that he has something to say to you about it. And so that you can trust in him, pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge. In times of trouble and in good times, a mighty fortress is our God.